Hello, everybody, and I'm happy to welcome Katie Hoffner here, who is the niece of Lydia Ruyle, who created all of the beautiful goddess banners that travel all around the world to various different goddess conferences and events. And if you've ever been to Glastonbury or to Goddess Spirit Rising or to any number of other amazing goddess and women's events, you've seen these banners, and if you haven't seen them in person, hopefully you'll get to see them at an event sometime. Katie traveled with Lydia for many years, taking these banners from place to place, and after Lydia passed on, Katie has taken up the role of stewarding the banners and making sure that the girls, as they're affectionately called, get where they need to go. And Katie's agreed to come and be on video with me today. I'm so grateful to tell us just a little story about Lydia Ruyle, because Lydia is one of the ancestresses who we honor in the Mount Shasta Goddess Temple in the month of March, our month of creativity. Thank you so much for being here, Katie. I really appreciate you taking the time. And I wondered if maybe you might just share what was your first introduction to Lydia's banners or her goddess work?
Well, first of all, thank you. And she would be so honored to know that she was being celebrated every March in the temple, and especially on the creative side, because her true joy was making the art and then teaching it. So I love that this legacy continues both spiritually and literally on this plane that we're in now. So thank you for honoring her. I will tell you, the very first time I encountered sort of the banners and her whole passion around getting these stories out and making them was after I had resigned from a big corporate job. And as a reminder, she started this body of work when she was 60 years old. And there are over 300 of them now, and she died at the age of 81. So it's amazing when she started it and the breadth of the work that she did over that course. So I came into the picture really on the girls' journey when I had resigned from a big corporate job. I had moved back to Colorado, which is where I grew up, 4 generations deep there. We have deep ties to the land and the people there. And she was going on a trip to Mexico. And she said, I'm going to go on a trip to Mexico to do reconnaissance for a larger group that I want to take. And we're going to meet with some, spiritual women down there. And I want to hang the banners. And I want to also, she's also very passionate about seeing the art in situ. So she wanted to see the goddesses where they were in their sacred places. So on this particular adventure, I agreed to go to Mexico with her, and it was quite an eye-opening experience for me, because I had just come from literally corporate America, and the very first time we were doing ritual on the island of women in Mexico and honoring Yeshe, I was thinking, oh my God, there's all these tourists staring at us, who's going to know me, and what, I still had the corporate hat on, and I finally was able to let it go. Like, I don't care. Like, I'm going to be in the moment and celebrate with these incredible women and be committed to learning. And so we went from the seaside and looking at temples there to the interior of Mexico. And that's when we first went to, oh my goodness, Palenque. And we had quite an adventure getting there. We had flights that got canceled, and this is before cell phones. So we are literally calling my uncle Collect from a payphone on a dirt street to say we've made it somewhere or we're okay. And we had done that when we arrived in Mexico, but then we went on this crazy adventure to our first hotel in Palenque, Mexico. And my favorite story around that is we had a taxi driver that we paid to go to, it was called Heaven, and I forget what Heaven is in Spanish, the Heaven Resort. And we get there, and it's literally a sign in the middle of a field, and even the taxi driver was nervous about leaving us there. And Aunt Lydia's like, no, this is the place. And I'm like, oh my God, what are we doing? And I have this woman, and by the way, I'm 5'9", she's 5 foot. So it's like the Amazon and then, the small person. And we have our bags, and the gentleman, we pay him, and he's like, "You okay? You okay?" And I'm like, "What are we doing? Like, are you sure we should be leaving?" And she said to me over the cab, "Katie, I trust the goddess. You just need to trust the goddess." I'm like, "Okay." So off we went into a very small path into a forest, and literally coming out of the forest, this gentleman walks up to us and says, "Oh, you must be Lydia." And I just laughed, and I, melted, and I said, "I get it, trust the goddess." And the other irony was that gentleman's name was Bob, which is my uncle's name, and her partner that she's known literally since kindergarten. So it was my first lesson about trusting with her and trusting the goddess and letting the goddess literally show us the way into this path in a forest. And we stayed in a treehouse that night, and it was magical. And then we went out scouting temples for the banners, for the particular goddess banners that she turned in, the goddess symbols that she turned into banners. And we went on some crazy adventures for that as well. But that was the beginning of that trip. I can go on and on. We got stuck in rivers. We went through machine gun borders in Chiapas where no one was going through. And she looked at me and I go, "I know, trust the goddess." And I said, "I wonder what the goddess thinks about a machine gun." And literally, we got through the machine gun border. We went on to an amazing temple where, of course, we're the only people there because no one else would have done what we did. So the banners that she's created, literally, we saw those images in situ at temples, and now they are on a banner and have flown around the world.
When you traveled with her, did she have any special favorite banners that she always liked to bring to places, or was it just out of 300, just whatever she felt like at that time?
So I will say, and it makes me tear up a little because, when she was leaving us, we had this amazing living memorial for her. So what was fun to see is what banner she wanted hung that evening. And I told her my goal was to make it look like the town hall in Glastonbury in Greeley, Colorado, and I think we did an amazing job of that. I will say the twin banners, and we call them the twins, which is it's two gold, it literally looked like to me a brooch. It's from Anatolia, from Turkey, and we saw that as well in the museum, this gorgeous gold piece of two figures. It looks like they're holding hands, but she loved that banner the most because she said life is about relationships, whether it's with yourself, whether it's with a spouse, with a partner, with a friend, mother, child, male, female, female, you and spirit. She said that you can't be a human being without being in a relationship, and that vibration sends out a field. And she did this gorgeous banner where it actually literally has vibrations coming off of it. And so that sat with her. She literally sat on a throne that night and had people come say goodbye to her. And that banner was right by her. So that was by far, I think, in the end, one of her favorites. She also loved Grandmother Spider-Woman because family to her was so important. She was the matriarch of our family. And Grandmother Spider-Woman tells her stories. It's from, where we are in Colorado, and it's part of that storytelling and that goddess culture there. So it was Hopi. Grandmother Spider-Woman was another one of her favorites. And I think I'd say Green Tara has gone around the world probably the most as well, because Green Tara is about compassion for everything, for all sentient beings and the world and the earth. And she loved to talk about that. It's also this gorgeous purple and green image. And then she loved those dark images. So, on the compassion side, I'd say Green Tara and Kuan Yin images, but she liked those dark images as well. She knew the power of creation and destruction, and that is what the female does. And so the Kalis and the Peles of the world, literally when she knew she was passing, she asked me to come get a shaman and have them call in Kali and Pele and to have them cut the cords. So she was really, really, to the very end, devoted to the power of the goddess. And those were some of her favorite images. So again, it's like saying, she you know, which is her favorite kid, but, you know, it's always kind of the one she was working on. But I would say in general, those are, you know, her favorites. And I would also add, there's a couple of the Black Madonnas too. So in the Christian traditions that she liked as well, because she went to Italy almost every year, to Florence, Italy, every year to work in her studio. And so there's some extraordinary images of the Black Madonna from Italy as well. I mean, I can go on and on.
Well, you know, the Black Madonna and Tara have been linked in the work of both Vicki Noble and China Galland. So interesting. And interestingly, the month of March, when we honor Lydia in the temple, is the same month that we honor the 21 Taras. So it's sort of amazing that you just mentioned that, and it gave me chills. I just have one more question, and that is to say, if you were talking to a woman who is thinking about beginning a new body of work, a body of sacred work or professional work, especially after midlife, what would be your advice for her?
Well, I really got this, not immediately, but after so many trips and seeing how both people on the trip responded to the images and indigenous people responded to the images that she had brought back to their sacred land, is to find an image that speaks to you and to sit with it and understand why it speaks to you and to have a conversation with that image. And whether you do it literally or with poetry or with visual or with dance, but have a conversation with that image, because the visual images get the language out of the way so that you can experience that directly and holistically and in a feminine way versus in that left brain rational sort of masculine way. It's much more of a feminine way. And I literally cannot go anywhere now. I mean, I have danced at the White House with, you know, at the Clinton's Christmas party, and I'm at the White House and I'm like, there are goddesses everywhere. Because of my Aunt Lydia, I can go and see Justice, and I can go see Fortuna, and they're in the White House, right? And they're everywhere. And once you start seeing them, whether it's the Starbucks logo, is the Sheila, right? And you can go on and on about where images speak, but once you start seeing it, they're everywhere.
Thank you so much, Katie. I hope those goddesses in the White House continue to help us in many, many ways.
No kidding.
And thank you so much for taking the time with me today.
And thank you for honoring her.
Oh, we love Lydia and her amazing legacy of work. And I look forward to the movie that's going to come out about her. And I look forward to seeing you when we're in Glastonbury later this year. So take care. And until then, we will just wish each other and the rest of the world well.
Bye.
Bye.